The Cooke. A historical fiction of love, identity and fate by S.J. Jeppsson. Chapter 4. The Journey to the Titanic. April 10th, 1912. It was the kind of spring day where the air held a lingering chill, but the sky promised fair weather. The crisp morning air carried the scent of salt and springtime blooms as the open phaeton carriage rattled along the well-worn road from Fareham to Southampton. The sleek black horses, adorned with silver-trimmed harnesses, trotted steadily, their breath misting in the cool air. Lydia reclined against the velvet cushions, tilting her face toward the sun as the wind toyed with the ribbons of her hat.
"Ah, what a glorious morning for an adventure,"
she declared, her voice carrying over the rhythmic clatter of hooves.
"One last ride through the English countryside before we embark upon the greatest ship in the world. Tell me, Kate, is it not the very picture of romance?"
Kate, who sat beside her with her gloved hands neatly folded in her lap, glanced toward the distant horizon where the hazy outline of Southampton's bustling port was beginning to take shape.
"I think,"
she said carefully,
"that I'm still trying to believe it is real."
Lydia laughed, a rich, melodious sound.
"My dear girl, it is far too late to turn back now."
As the carriage rounded the final bend, the scene before them shifted, the quiet countryside giving way to a bustling port, alive with motion. The great Titanic loomed ahead, its massive hull gleaming beneath the morning sun, a floating palace waiting to carry them across the sea. Lydia leaned forward, eyes shining.
"Well, Kate,"
she murmured,
"shall we step into history?"
The docks at Southampton were alive with movement. Porters rushing with steamer trunks, families embracing loved ones, sailors shouting instructions over the hum of excitement. Lydia, dressed in a tailored travelling coat of deep burgundy, her wide-brimmed hat adorned with a silk ribbon, carried herself with effortless grace. To her, this voyage was merely a transition, a step toward a future she had no control over. Kate, on the other hand, stood in awe, clutching the handle of her single-worn satchel as she took in the grandeur of the Titanic for the first time. Alongside them, the aristocracy of England boarded with effortless elegance, their steamer trunks carried by porters in crisp uniforms. Gentlemen in top hats and tailored suits helped their wives and daughters ascend the gangway, their polished boots clicking against the wooden planks. Meanwhile, third-class passengers carrying their own worn luggage and cradling sleeping children stood in long lines, waiting for their turn to board, their excitement laced with nervous anticipation. The Titanic's crew stood in pristine formation along the sunlit deck, their navy and white uniforms pressed to perfection, gold buttons gleaming in the morning light. The murmur of boarding passengers drifted up from the gangway, blending with the distant clang of luggage carts and the rhythmic hum of the sea against the ship's hull. Among the assembled crew, Gideon Christopher, a 23-year-old Irish-American cook with flour-dusted hands and the sharp, watchful eyes of a man who had seen more than his years should allow, leaned casually against the railing. His broad shoulders were relaxed, his arms crossed over his chest as he scanned the steady stream of travellers ascending the gangway. A familiar chestnut-haired girl in a deep burgundy coat caught his eye. Something about her, her confident stride, the way she carried herself as if the entire world had been laid at her feet, stirred a memory. His jaw tensed as he searched his mind, turning over details like puzzle pieces. Then it struck him. A brief mention of Weatherby House preparing for an extravagant wedding. The wealthy heiress set to marry some titled British lord. The Weatherby girl. The name clicked in his mind before he fully realised why. A memory surfaced. Sebastian's last letter sent months ago, ink slightly smudged, as if written in haste.
Barely had a moment's peace.
Sebastian had scrawled, his neat handwriting just messy enough to show the rush.
The whole house is losing its mind over Miss Lydia's wedding. Dresses, menus, guests, drama. You'd think she was marrying the King of England, not some second-rate lord. She's booked on the Titanic, if you can believe it. Whole damn ship just to bring her back to New York. Guess that's what money's for. You could write, you know, not to me, even just Mum. She still sets a place for you at Christopher's. I tell her not to. She doesn't listen. Still thinks you're off building a better life. Let her keep thinking it.
Gideon could hear the laughter behind Sebastian's words.
Just stay alive, alright? You still owe me a drink, and I'd rather drink with my brother than toast to a ghost.
Gideon had chuckled at the time, picturing his brother rolling his eyes as he wrote it. The mention of some high society wedding had meant nothing to him then, just another tale from a world that had long since ceased to matter to him. And yet, here she was. The girl from his brother's letter wasn't just ink on a page anymore. She was real, vivid, boarding the same ship as him. He wasn't sure why, but the thought landed heavier than it should have. A curious thing, really. To know someone without knowing them. To have heard a name in letters. To have imagined a life in a place he'd never seen. And then, to have that very name, that very life, step directly into his own path. He exhaled, shaking his head. The world had a strange way of making old things new again. Gideon huffed a quiet laugh under his breath. Here, on the Titanic's deck, watching her ascend into first class, he couldn't help but find it amusing. A spoiled heiress sailing toward a future she probably didn't want. And here he was, a nameless cook, sailing toward a future he wasn't sure existed. The sea wind cut through the open deck, sharp and briny, carrying with it the distant cries of seagulls and the rumble of the engines deep within the ship's belly. Gideon rolled his shoulders, shaking off the thought. She was just another passenger, and soon he'd be just another ghost in the crowd. As she stepped closer, Gideon studied her with curiosity. She carried herself with the effortless grace of someone accustomed to admiration. Her chin tilted just slightly, her lips curved in the faintest trace of amusement. The sunlight caught in her rich brown eyes, making them gleam with something sharp, something playful, as if the world existed purely for her entertainment. She leaned toward her companion, murmuring something in a low voice, her laughter warm yet edged with mischief. The other girl, the one at her side, bore a striking resemblance to the first. Yet where the first moved with polished ease, this one was softer, quieter. There was no performance in the way she walked, no calculated gesture. Her steps were precise but unhurried, her gaze observant, thoughtful. Unlike her companion, she did not revel in the eyes upon them. Rather, she seemed to exist just outside the grandeur, lingering at its edges rather than claiming center stage. Gideon's lips twitched at the murmurs around him.
She's a saint, isn't she?
One of the younger kitchen lads muttered, nudging him with an elbow.
Both of them.
Another added, letting out a low whistle. Gideon barely heard them. She was breathtaking, yes, but that wasn't what caught his attention. It was something else, something beneath the polished elegance, hidden just beneath the surface. There was a flicker of restlessness in her gaze, a tension in her shoulders so slight it might have been imperceptible to anyone who wasn't looking closely. She carried herself with poise, but not the ease of a woman completely at home in her world. No, this was the grace of someone who had learned how to wear refinement like a second skin, flawlessly executed, yet still, somehow, a performance. And then there was her companion, the one dressed in simpler, more practical attire. Her steps were careful, precise, but her eyes moved constantly, darting with quiet curiosity, drinking in the ship, the people, the world around her as if she were memorizing every detail. There was no pretense to her, no polished elegance, no effort to be noticed. And yet, she was. There was mystery in her too. A quiet, unassuming presence that somehow left a deeper impression than all the silk and grandeur around her. The men around him chuckled and exchanged playful jabs about how far out of their league these women were, but Gideon only smirked, shaking his head.
Best get back to work, boys,
he muttered, rolling up his sleeves.
That lot doesn't mix with ours.
And yet, as he turned away, something made him glance back one last time, as if fate had already begun to shift beneath his feet. As they ascended the gangway, Lydia let out a soft, indulgent sigh, tilting her head to admire the sheer magnificence before them.
My word, Kate! Isn't this ship spectacular? Perhaps they built it just for me.
She flashed a playful smile, her voice carrying the lilting amusement of a girl who had seen luxury her entire life, but never quite tired of it. Kate barely heard her. Her breath caught as she took it all in, the gleaming brass railings, the towering black and red smokestacks that stretched toward the heavens, the hum of opulence that seemed to pulse beneath every polished surface. It was like stepping into one of the storybooks from her childhood, too grand, too golden, too far from the flower-dusted quiet of Titchfield to feel real. And yet, here she was, no longer a baker's daughter watching from the outside, but a girl with a key in her hand. A steward in a crisp navy blue uniform stepped forward, bowing slightly as he greeted them.
Welcome aboard the Titanic, Miss Weatherby.
Lydia offered him a small nod, the kind she had likely perfected at 100 glittering functions, then swept forward, drawing Kate along beside her. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air seemed to change. Kate felt it immediately. The hush of wealth, the scent of French perfume and polished wood, the cool flicker of electric chandeliers overhead. The first-class corridors stretched before them in a dazzling display of luxury. Intricate gilded mouldings, marble inlays beneath their feet, tapestries and oil paintings adorning the walls, as if this were not a ship, but a grand estate set to sea. Lydia glanced at Kate, her lips curving as she caught the wonder in her expression.
Ah, dearest Kate,
she murmured, looping her arm through hers.
Uncharted territory indeed. Let's hope we make it to the other side.